Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and last week our partners Fansbet invited us to the Glasgow Hydro to cover the Star Sixes tournament. For those of a certain vintage, this tournament may have brought back fond memories of the Tennant Sixes, which ran for 10 years in the 1980s and 90s. One of our previous guests, JP Mason, recalled our 1992 win as being a rare piece of silverware during the grim, barren years of the early 90s. This Fansbet Star Sixes tournament was certainly an upgrade on the Tennant Sixes variety, and Kevin Graham spent most of his time there trying to collar Vitor Baia about his antics in a certain UEFA Cup final. We didn't manage to chat to the ex-Porto keeper, which was probably a good thing, but we did get 8 others with a Celtic state of mind. Ex-Celts Alan Rambo McInally, Rab Douglas, Mark Burchill and Jackie McNamara are joined on this bill by Republic of Ireland internationalists Owen Coyle, Stephen Hunt and Niall Quinn, as well as John Gibbons of the Anfield Rap. We speak about the January transfer window, the challenge at the top of the league and the fields of Athenry. Some of these interviews have a bit of background noise, which was unavoidable in the small space that we were given, but the content is definitely worth listening to. First up is Big Rambo, Alan McInally. Alan, welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. Someone who played with Celtic in Kilmarnock, what's your thoughts on the challenge this season that Steve Clarke has mounted?
Yeah, brilliant. I think it's coming from a bit left field because I think when Steve took the job in the first place, there was a few eyebrows raised. His CV is still pretty good, working under Mourinho, etc., and maybe not having the greatest stuff down in England and then coming up with Scotland. A lot of people were like, well, I don't know if it's a great move for him, but he's proved how good a coach he is, how good he's done at Kilmarnock and galvanised the team into a serious challenge, not just like, they're okay for 3 or 4 weeks. They've consistently had it good, and certainly they've given something for Celtic and Rangers to think about.
I always remember Alex Ferguson saying that there's only so far a club like Aberdeen can go. They can never be a Celtic or a Rangers. Is Steve Clarke going to face that dilemma at some stage?
Possibly. If Fergie said it, then we'll all have to agree with it. It's as simple as that. He's the god, he's the guru. But you can understand where Sir Alex is coming from, because for the simple mathematics of the amount of fans you have, the size of the stadium you have, the worldwide watching of the likes of Rangers and Celtic are hard for other teams to compete with, and that's probably going to be the case. The only thing is that for him to maintain any kind of challenge is to be incredibly cute in the transfer market and somehow use his coaching skills to try and keep up with the top end, and try and turn Rangers and Celtic over. In terms of challenging for a long period of time, it'd be pretty difficult, considering they're not even in the same shopping for players, really, are they? One shopping, and I won't mention some of the one's in Harrods and one's in Aldi.
This season there was a bit of wobble early doors with Brendan Rodgers looking at the signings that didn't come in. Yeah. Do you think we've weathered that storm despite the defeat against Rangers?
I don't think they've actually I was going to say they haven't recovered from not getting who he wanted in. I think Celtic would have been stronger. We were talking just off camera, you said Celtic have lost 4 games, and that's kept everybody just concertinaed in at the top. I do think he'll look to try and strengthen again, because he didn't manage to bring in who he wanted, and if they don't, then they're just going to have to deal with. Celtic still have a really good squad, genuinely good squad, and I suppose they really should be winning the league, but it's not as easy as that. It never is as easy as that. And if they, Celtic set their own standards, and sometimes it's difficult to keep getting to those standards that everybody expects you to play every Saturday. Mm-hmm.
Again, Rodgers has won 7 trophies in a row, Alan. Does it get to the stage where the suitors or potential suitors down south think it's too easy up here, or do you think his stock will continue to rise if Celtic win another treble this season?
I think the biggest problem for anybody and I'll throw Rangers in as well, if they ever get back to what they used to be, I think England's perception of Scottish football is it's not as good as down south, which is fair enough. The only thing is that Celtic have played in Europe for many, many years, and that's given them an edge to a certain extent. I think a competitive edge. Domestically, that's one where they have to live up to, and maybe that's where they're just failing a little bit, because when they do play a lesser team, in inverted commas, then that's when you've got to get up for it. But that's just something that, geographically Scotland will always be maybe known as the smaller or lesser brother in terms of quality of league, quality of players, and it's just something everybody up in Scotland has has to really, try and make it better, whether that's at the SFA or bringing coaches in to teach our younger players coming up that are better than maybe what they are at the moment. Simple as that.
There were some disappointments in Europe when you played for Celtic, one in particular. Do you think Celtic can progress beyond Valencia this season?
Well, I certainly hope so. It's tough, really tough. I suppose they're always pushing rope up a hill, Celtic, really, when you get into Europe, because again, as much as I'm saying they top the bill in Scotland, when they get into Europe, they're the second cousin, as it were. They've got a good chance, but they'll need to play. Everything will need to drop just perfectly. Everybody will have to play 100%. But there's no question they've got a chance. If you're going in thinking we'll never win, then you won't win. And as long as Celtic go with a good attitude, which will come from Brendan, not a problem with that, they've got a chance, but still a really tough game.
Speaking to Celtic fans since the game against Rangers, I've not had any word to say that we didn't deserve to lose that game.
No.
However, there's been another furore over the refereeing of that game. What's your take on that, Alan?
Yeah, I suppose. Well, who can we blame? We get beat. We can't blame ourselves. We can't blame the fan. Who else can we blame? It's a little bit like that. I mean, it was a good game. I enjoyed the game. I was down south getting ready for doing the Sky stuff and obviously watching it as it was coming in before we went on air. And Rangers did well. To be fair, they did do well. But naturally, most of the Celtic guys are unhappy of the 750 tickets they got.
Yeah.
Probably the next game we'll give Rangers 600 or something. That'll be the case. And that was the biggest thing that disappointed me about that, actually, because you want the Celtic Enfield with Celtic Park. You don't mind giving them a little bit of support, but that wasn't the case. But that's not. We can't blame that either. To blame the ref, I'm always loath to blame the referee. Difficult game to referee. If you, I, or anybody in this room put a black shirt on and tried to referee a Celtic Rangers game, it wouldn't be one I'd be picking up the whistle for right away. So, as much as it's easy to have a go at them, Rangers won the game 1-0. We deal with it. You dust yourself down and you go again. Between
Scott Brown, Callum McGregor, and James Forrest, they've played over 1,000 games for Celtic.
Incredible.
Is it time for Scott Brown at the end of the season to move on? Or do you think it'll be a huge loss to Brendan Rodgers?
I think it'll be a loss, no question. There's a big talk about him going down under to Melbourne. It's an incredible amount of games they've played. I think it'd be fair to say out of those games, I'm looking at 20 that he wasn't that good in, as in terms of his level of performance, which is nothing. And and there's no question that you would lose someone like Scott's. Maradona he ain't, Messi he ain't. But boys, in the middle of the park, the job he does for Celtic's different class. Because if he didn't do that, Celtic wouldn't have had the success behind him and with him as skipper that they've had. So it's dead easy to have a go at him because he's not scoring goals from 35 yards. But you ask all the players that play with him, he wouldn't have anybody else in his position. And that's why if he ever leaves Celtic will miss him.
Excellent, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Pleasure. Owen Coyle, welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm guessing you've still got your eye on the Scottish game. What's your thoughts at the moment of the league challenge to Brendan Rodgers?
I think it's new, isn't it? Because with all due respect, Celtic have carried all before them year after year and always had that cushion, that gap that nobody gave them. They earned that gap because they were far away the best team. To my mind, they're still the best team, but it's certainly a lot closer now. And obviously with the game on the 29th, that's brought the league really everything congested. But I've got to say, when you look at the quality of the Celtic squad, when they're all fully fit, because there's been a couple that's been missing. Obviously, even you look at that game, Rogic was away as well, which didn't help. He's a huge player, a player I really like. But Oliver Burke coming in, and Brendan, and obviously with Peter there, they'll do more business in January of that. I've got no doubts. And that then not only bringing good players in, but it sends a message out to the others that you need to get back to your very best. Because sometimes when you're bringing those good players in, you're also looking for a reaction from the existing squad. So I've got no doubts that those players who are proven winners, proven champions, will want to make sure that they go and do that again, and they'll have a bit between their teeth. And it's going to be great because, with all due respect, Rangers have showed their intent. They've signed some good players who I know, obviously I'm based down in England, so I know the quality of those players, and that's great because, I think for Scottish football's point of view, then it's fantastic because obviously particularly down in England, every week I'm defending the teams and everything else because of our passion we've got for the league and the people in it. But what it also does as well, maybe it's just a little wake-up call that Celtic need to get back to their very best. Because when they're at their best, they've shown that they carry all before them. Get some wonderful players, and sometimes you need that little kick up the backside to get going again. I'm pretty sure none of them would have enjoyed losing the game and they'll be making sure, I would think, in the second half of that season they're ready to go, they're ready to be champions again, and it's great. And for all as much as it's close, which it is, Celtic are still on track for the treble, which would be an incredible achievement. And so I've said this before, what they've achieved has been remarkable, because even the unbeaten thing, because at any given time you can lose a game. A goalkeeper can have an off day, a mistake. The other goalkeeper could have a world day, a bad decision. So for Celtic to go through that season unbeaten, I mean, that was a huge, not only ability wise, but a huge mental challenge, and they showed up for that. That's why, even as we speak just now, where we are, I've got no doubts they'll look at that, because they have the mentality, and they'll pick themselves up. They'll be ready to go, show their quality of football. And but it's great that it's exciting. I still do think, for everything that's been done, that Celtic have the quality to go and be champions again. But I think it's really good that there's, Derek who McInnes at Aberdeen, Derek will do business. Lenny will like to do business at Hibs as well. Guys are really good friends of mine and everything else. So I think it's exciting, and for all the excitement which we want, I do think ultimately the quality that Celtic have will be shown in the long, because it is, what you want to call it, the marathon, to go and win that league title again.
There's been a wee bit of furore after the event in relation to the refereeing, Owen. How do we deal with that? Is that something, some people think it's incompetence, some people think it's just human error? What's your take on it? You've loads of experience in Scottish football.
Yeah, I've got to say, and I've been on the wrong side of some decisions myself, I don't think any referee ever goes out to intentionally make bad decisions or get something wrong. I think they go out with with the best intentions. I've got to say that. I've got to say though, I think we've got to be honest in our assessment, and Glasgow Rangers deserve to win that game, and they've been on the other side many times when Celtic, and sometimes have steamrolled them in the last few years, as we know, but Rangers were deserving winners. So I think stuff happened in the game. Did it affect the result? No, it didn't. For me, it didn't affect the result, but those little bits that went on, that can happen every game. But I think you're right. I think for peace of mind, you want to get those decisions right if you can. But it's always a conundrum, that one, because I think they go out with the best intentions, and sometimes it's being human beings as we all are, because we all make mistakes. I mean, Brendan will tell you, you might have made a couple of mistakes, and only a couple probably in his tenure there, but we all make mistakes, and if referees made a mistake, I think it wasn't intentional. It's one of those things that happened.
Mm-hmm. One final question on about yourself. What does the future hold? As Celtic fans, at one point we expected you to be the manager. Would you come back up to Scotland to manage?
It's like anything else, obviously been based where I am in England. If it's the right thing, of course. I mean, listen, that never leaves you. I'm born in the Gorbals through and through. I'm up and down all the time. Celtic through and through. That goes without saying. That never ever leaves you. That's part of your fabric, isn't it? So, and obviously I got a vested interest. But if the right thing comes about, then of course I'd look to take that. Whether it's Scotland, England, whatever it is. We're football lovers. We've been very fortunate that with their career in football, very blessed in many, many ways. So if the right thing comes about and it's a good challenge, then I look forward to it.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure meeting you. Lovely meeting you, boys. All the best.
Rab Douglas, welcome to Celtic State of Mind. Great performance out there.
Thoroughly enjoyable. It's good to see the boys and some of your ex-teammates and boys you've played against and played with. So it's a great concept. Thoroughly enjoying it. Could do with still shifting a stone, but I thoroughly enjoy it. A clean sheet at the end of the day, so that's a good win for us.
Did you ever play in the Tenant Sixes back in the day?
No. The first one was the Star Sixes in London last year. So, but great wee concept, and to bring it to Scotland's great.
You're out there playing with Jackie McNamara. Obviously the pair of you were part of the Seville team, as it's become known, 16 years ago, Rab. Do you think the Celtic team that we have at the moment can progress further than the next round?
It'll be a big ask. I think the key will be getting injuries back. The other thing is what Mr Rodgers gets to do at the transfer window. I would like to see Celtic, and I would hope that he's getting a war chest. There's plenty of money in the bank account. A lot of injuries. A couple of wee bolster signings could be great. Celtic, I just said to the guys in the press there now, Celtic Park on a European night, you fancy your chances against MD. The big thing is doing okay over in Valencia. We obviously came back 1-0, lost, and then we took it to penalties at Celtic Park. So it was great. It's great to look back. You think 16 years ago and you're still trying to kick and catch a ball with some of your teammates. So, brilliant.
Excellent. I mean, obviously Celtic lost the last game against Rangers there. Every Celtic fan I've spoken to says the best team won on the day. How difficult is it to go right into a winter break after that if you're a Celtic player?
They'll be disappointed. I didn't see the game. We had a game with our growth, but I think when you look at it, by all accounts, I was listening to the radio on the way up, Rangers were the better team. I think that'll be eating at the Celtic players and they'll be itching to get back in the next game. I'm quite sure Brendan Rodgers will have a few targets lined up and it'll be interesting to see how many he gets in.
How do you see this going? It is a challenge. We're sitting here in the new year, Rab. We're at joint points with Rangers. Kilmarnock are breathing down our necks. How do you see it going in the next few months?
I still can't see beyond Celtic. I think Steven Gerrard's been a great signing for Scottish football. Same with Brendan Rodgers. The product in Scotland's improving, I think, under the names they're bringing in. And I think people forget about Kilmarnock. They're up there just dodging away. Flying under the radar, picking up points, and it'll be interesting to see how they do.
One final question for you, Rab. Ex-Celtic goalkeeper Craig Gordon looked finished for 2 years. When you're watching him from the sidelines, how impressive is it, his kind of resurgence, his resurrection?
I think you look at Craig and he's a credit to his professionalism. Probably like myself when you see it at the Star Sixes, not the finished article with the ball at his feet, but he's worked hard to try and improve. Scott Bain's confident. I used to watch him at Dundee. Craig's still improving. The saves Craig makes, he's not a goalie that's going to come and catch crosses, in the penalty spot, but his saves in the line I think you look at the Rangers game, Celtic could have been first class performance. There's still, I'm quite sure if Craig's managed well, fitness wise, and he feels fit, he's still a big asset to Celtic.
A pleasure meeting you, Rab. Thanks very much. All right, cheers.
Stephen Hunt, welcome to our Celtic State of Mind. How are you? How are you enjoying playing in Glasgow?
Yeah, listen, I've never played up in Scotland. Well, actually played a pre-season friendly with Wolves up in Scotland at Celtic Park before. This is more intense than a pre-season friendly, so enjoyable, loving it. Can't get enough.
You done something last night that all Celtic fans would have wanted today.
Yeah.
You should have charged Barry Ferguson.
Yeah, I didn't hit me hard enough after his tackle, if I'm honest with you. He got me, to be fair, and I got to stick up for myself a little bit. I'm just disappointed I got sent off in the end. It was a bit harsh.
Didn't deserve to get sent off?
No, listen, it was a clumsy tackle more than malicious, so take it on the chin.
You were pushed in the back though.
Yeah, I was pushed in the back, Yeah, it took me and that kind of aggravated me going into the tackle, so...
And it was Lee McCulloch that pushed you in the back.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you're trying to, hopefully we might have Scotland in the third, fourth playoff, maybe. Maybe it might be an opportunity, you never know.
Being a youngster growing up in Ireland, what was your memories of Celtic?
Listen, I think anyone who grows up in Ireland has loads of memories of Celtic and the teams. I think Brendan Rodgers, obviously, the last few years has had it really good up here, and Steven Gerrard's come along and really brought the league back to life in terms of competitive. So it's good to see, and the closer Rangers are to Celtic, but obviously below them would be a great thing, and Celtic to win the league.
So what do you think, Brendan, what he's done with Celtic? 7 trophies in a row.
This is the problem he has. I think he's won so many trophies in a row. When he wins the next one, it's almost like it's expected, and it's not easy to win league titles or win cup medals. So it's pure graft, and a lot of ability goes into it as well. So he's obviously done an amazing job. The longer he stays at Celtic, the better for every Celtic fan, I suppose.
Do you think that he's been at Celtic, his stock's rising in England?
I won't necessarily mean it. I don't think he has to rise his stock in terms of everyone knows what he's about. I think he brings a structure to the team. He brings a ability to pass the ball and try and pass it and make things happen in a football way. I think Man City and Liverpool now have really raised the bar in terms of how to play the game, and everyone else is trying to follow suit.
Brilliant, Stephen. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Mark Burchill, welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. What's your thoughts for the challenge that Kilmarnock and Rangers have given Celtic this season?
Obviously it's a new challenge, for what Brendan Rodgers has had over the last few years. I think it's something that he'll need to dig deep and look at. It's been easy for him since he's been at Celtic, I would say, over the last couple of years. And this year it's a challenge, so it's something he'll need to look within himself and within the team to try and come up with new tactics at times, I think, because it became a wee bit one-dimensional at times, and that's why people have, Celtic haven't been so dominant this year. Rangers are strengthened undoubtedly, and Kilmarnock having a fantastic season, but I have absolutely no doubt Celtic have got the quality to be top of the league at the end of the season.
You see a lot of it working for Celtic TV. Where do we need to strengthen?
I think obviously we undoubtedly we've done our striker was needed, so if Oliver Burke's that person, then that's great. Lee Griffiths has been a miss, and Edouard's a young lad, that he's been thrown into the fire, so it's he'll come good, Edouard, but there'll be plenty of time for him. But as I say, to be that number 9, be that guy playing every week and scoring goals, there's a lot of pressure, so you need Lee and you need one other as well, possibly two, to come in and push for that number 9 spot to freshen it up at times.
Are we sometimes guilty of forgetting that Edouard's only 20? You came into the scene really young, Mark. What kind of pressure does that put on such a young player?
Of course it does, and especially in the fact of being the number 9. I was at Celtic when there was Larsson, Hartson, Sutton. There was top strikers there, so you're almost like second or third. So there was a lot of pressure, of course, playing with Celtic, but Edouard's got to produce every single game now because he's the main man, so, and if he doesn't score, it's a disaster. We almost don't win the match, so a lot of pressure, but I'm sure that the course of time he'll become a top player, and he is a top player, but to do it consistently is very difficult at such a young age.
You spoke about having no doubts or having confidence that Celtic will still win the league. How can we do in Europe? Can we progress beyond Valencia?
Very difficult, very difficult. I've seen Valencia a lot, but I think they've not been great over the last 2 years. This season they're not doing fantastically well in the league, so I think there's always a chance. I think that what it's like, get anyone at Celtic Park under the lights, you've got a chance. And so I don't think the performance has been unbelievable in Europe this year. I think they've been good. And I think obviously to get through and play a team like Valencia, then it'll test Brendan and the boys.
We've got Jackie just coming in here. What's it like to play alongside this man at this age?
How good was he in that game there?
We nutmeg with Michael Owen there, Jackie.
Aye, I didn't have a lot of options, so it was either Meg or it would have been off him for a throw-in, but glad it came off.
We've just been talking to Mark there about the transfer window. We spoke already when Simon was on a Celtic State of Mind. We're just talking about a striker. Obviously we've got Burchill today. What do you think he'll do in the next 6 months?
Hopefully he does well. He's obviously a young lad. He's got a bit to prove. He had a big move there to Germany and he's came back there and he's played a lot of football, but it's a good opportunity. Brendan's got a track record of developing young players and making them better, and I'm sure there's no doubt Celtic will bring another 1 or 2 players in the window as well. So it's winter break just now, but I'm sure we're doing the work behind the scenes.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jackie. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Niall Quinn, welcome to Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you.
Now, we're looking at a very interesting Scottish campaign at this moment of time. What's your views on the challenge that Brendan Rodgers faces?
I think it's brilliant. I think it's great for the industry here in football. It's so much more interesting when Rangers and Celtic are right at it at the top. I watched the press conferences again. I'm watching the results. I'm watching everything that's happening. I think everybody's the same. I think Scottish football is in a far better and healthier place with Rangers coming at Celtic and asking questions again. Obviously, with my background, I hope Celtic answer all those questions. But it's great interest. It's great for the industry here, and I think both what Rangers have done needs to be applauded, and what Steven Gerrard is growing there, and it's almost like a bit of a revolution that's happening, and Celtic have to stand up to it, but they won't be found wanting in that department either. So it's great. Scottish football is becoming really interesting again.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at the January transfer window now, how pivotal is that to where the league championship ends up?
Well, I've not looked too closely at the targets that both clubs have been looking at. I think the interesting thing now is the reaction that Celtic put up, and do they buy their way out of it, or do they sort of just come good as Brendan Rodgers coached their way with the team that he's got? It's very hard when you're on the outside looking in. It's very hard to predict on transfers, etc., because you really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But I think Celtic's a very well-run club. It didn't run into difficulties, for instance, that Rangers did over the years, and I think they have certain, I suppose, trade barriers that they don't go through or go over, and whether that will be kept. In fact, it should be. I'd imagine the hierarchy aren't suddenly going to change just because Rangers have come good again. But it's I think the momentum of Rangers is the interesting thing. Do they kick on now? Can they go and put daylight between themselves and Celtic over the next 2 or 3 months? And that challenge, I'd be more interested to see what Rangers do in terms of what Steven Gerrard's business would be, to see if Celtic can still maintain that top spot. But as I said, it's really interesting. Don't know how it's going to go, but it makes for great viewing.
It's sparked interest again.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
One of your other ex-clubs, Sunderland, they've got Jack Ross down there with John Potter doing great things.
Absolutely.
How far can they take that?
Oh, well, I hope it goes really well from the most important thing that I've seen from both the ownership side and what Jack is doing is the crowd are buying into it. And if the Sunderland fans buy into what you're doing, you've got a great chance. It lifts you up 10-20%. Whereas if they're not with you, players drop and their standards can't. It's just a very difficult place to play if you're not doing well. I think anybody who saw the Netflix series or has watched any of those episodes will tell you the biggest thing that comes out of that series is how important the club is to the people. And when you've got people who buy into it and present a team worthy of that sort of buy-in that the fans have for their club, then things go well. And Jack Ross has done that superbly, and I wish him all the best. It's not easy, and they've a mountain to climb to get back to where it needs to be. But he started off brilliantly, and I wish him nothing but success.
Now, we spoke to one of your international teammates, Chris Morris, some time ago, and he was telling us, Chris was telling us that you, at some point, were his roommate.
I was, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. And you have got a part to play in the Celtic history because Chris Morris introduced the Fields Arthur Rye to Celtic Park. He told us you introduced it to him.
Well, isn't it funny? Yeah, we went, so in the mid-80s there, Jack took over. He didn't know what he'd taken over. As an Englishman was after taking over the Irish team, and he said, on the bus, what did they do before me? And the older players said, we put on the Dubliners or we put on one of these tapes. And the big song around the mid-'80s, for the Irish people, immigrants in London or whatever, was The Fields of Athenry. So we kind of gave the lads who didn't know the words of it, around the bus. And we used to go to the matches singing The Fields of Athenry. A man called Paddy Riley actually sang it originally. And Chris started singing it. And he went to a supporters do, I think, here. And he was presented with Player of the Year or something. He got a bit carried away and he got up and started singing The Fields of Athenry. And it was in a big Celtic venue, and they all started singing it, and within a year or so the whole 50,000, 60,000 Celtic fans were singing it every week. So glad I contributed a little bit to Celtic's history. Like every Irish kid, I envisaged myself playing one day for Celtic. All Irish kids do. It didn't happen for me, but I had a little bit of an assistance there to something good that happened at the club.
Fantastic, Niall. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
John Gibbons, welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. How are you?
Very good, mate. Nice to see you. Been a while.
It has been a while. A year, eh?
Yeah.
September last year I went down to your offices and we spoke at length about Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah.
At that time we hadn't signed for his. So what's your thoughts on Virgil now?
Yeah, he's been everything you promised me. Really, he's been exceptional. It was funny when we were linked with him and it was looking like he wanted to come because we were saying you don't want to put too much pressure on him, if you like. All the talk was, he's not going to transform the whole defence. He might be a good defender, he might be better than what we've got, but he's not going to solve all the problems. But he sort of has, really, and he's galvanised what's around him. Because they were good defenders, they just needed a bit of leadership, needed a bit of someone who was calm. And just a bit of extra quality, I guess. So he's making the players better around him, and he's just been phenomenal. And so it's been, it's an expensive signing, but one of our best in the last 10 years.
It's fair to say when I spoke to you originally, Brendan Rodgers could do nothing wrong. In his third season now, we've lost 4 games this season, which we only lost 4 games in total last season. There was a wee bit of disharmony in the summer about lack of signings, and there's now fans questioning his signing policy because the squad needs refreshed. He got to a stage somewhere similar with Liverpool, where his signings were questionable.
He had a funny time with transfers generally at Liverpool, and it's an interesting one, and it's an interesting contrast with Jurgen Klopp, because I think it's fair to say that, if you iron up the pros and cons of Brendan's time at Liverpool, either at the time or kind of with reflection, I think signings probably would have been in the negative side. The squad he came into needed players. The players signed in the summer kind of weren't great, really. He got Barini, who he'd worked with before, who never looked kind of, up to it. And so they went back in January and signed 2 players who were not Rodgers signings, really, who was Sturridge and Coutinho. And it's funny if you look back to the comments made when Sturridge signed for Liverpool, both by Rodgers and Steven Gerrard, who was captain at the time, to be fair. And I don't know what the opposite of signed to a fanfare was, but that's what it was. They were like, well, we'll see how this fella gets on. And look, a lot of people were unsure about Sturridge at the time. He's seen as someone who baggage and blah blah blah, and his injury record, and so the fact that we were able to get him for £12 million said that he wasn't exactly beating offers off, but you saw how well he did. And then Phil Coutinho as well. He was one who was tracked by the sort of scouting team, really, and so if you sort of look back to the summer and think, well, Brendan's lads didn't sort of do the business, and these 2 lads came in and transformed the team, really, and then that was the basis to go on in 13-14 and that title challenge. I've always thought he's a coach, and I think he's a coach, Brendan Rodgers. I think he gets more out of players. I think he develops players. I think he's an excellent man manager. I think he's better tactically than people give him credit for, and I think he works out ways to kind of beat teams with kind of what he's got. Yeah, as I say, the difference between Jurgen Klopp's interesting because Jurgen came in and after a summer of sort of arguments between manager and transfer committee, and at the time the transfer committee at Liverpool was sort of much maligned, really. People were moaning about it, and that summer, the summer before Rodgers' last summer, if you like, just sort of sums it up. It was a bit of a mess in that it was like, well, you can have one and we can have one. So basically the committee signed for me, but he got Benteke, and then they just couldn't fit together, and so it was sort of a bit of a mess, really. And so, but since Brendan left, Jürgen is much more relaxed with this style because he comes from Europe, where he's used to working with the director of football and having people not buy players for him, because obviously a manager should always have a choice, but much more relaxed about listening to other viewpoints, I think, and listening to, okay, this is how we play. And Liverpool have been exceptional in the transfer market ever since Jürgen came in, really, and I think that's because it's much more harmonious. So I think for Brendan, I think he'd be better served focusing on his strengths, and I think better served kind of maybe working with someone who could identify the kind of players for the systems that he likes to play and then developing them. But I understand it's hard because you're bringing someone in from cold or whatever, are they going to get on and things like that. It's difficult, but I understand the concerns because the Liverpool fans had them as well.
That's brilliant, John. Thanks very much. Great, brilliant.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our Fansbet Star Sixes special. A Celtic State of Mind will be producing far more video content and live events in 2019 to complement the podcasts, and we're looking forward to meeting as many of our listeners as possible on our travels. Fansbet are a new online bookmaker who promise to share 50% of their net profits from tagged accounts for causes that matter the most to fans. The business is about fans and run by match-going supporters, and we at A Celtic State of Mind are delighted to be partnered with them. If having a bet is already part of your match day and something you enjoy doing on football, racing or any sport, then you can download the Fansbet app to sign up. If you do so, then please select Celtic as your club and A Celtic State of Mind, and you'll be making a contribution to keeping your podcast going and supporting other Celtic causes. They've already helped to make a difference to the fan community by contributing to fanzines, supporter trusts, branches with travel costs, and they were also part of the first safe standing installation in England at Shrewsbury Town. You can visit blog.fansbet.com to read more about that on their Giving Back page. All of our podcasts, articles and videos can now be found on intocreative.co.uk. This site encapsulates our love of Celtic, music, books, film, politics and much more. Pay us a visit, check out our shop for merchandise and contribute your working ideas to the site. As always, thank you all for listening. Join us again next week. We will have another guest with A Celtic State of Mind.